Hello everyone and welcome to part 15 of the React series. Today I will cover the top 8 mistakes new React developers make. We make a lot of mistakes, especially in the beginning, because we are not used to it, and as a result we waste a lot of time hour after hour, day after day. It will not only inform you of the mistake you are likely to make, but I also want you to review what you have already learned. In this video, we will go over how to fix all the common mistakes and understand error messages. And hit the subscribe button if you are new so you don't miss out on any part of this tutorial. Let's get started. We are used to naming files and functions with a small letter, so often we forget to begin the names of components with a capital letters. For example, I have a message file. I want to import it into the app component, so I will import and return this element. Now if I go to the browser, message is not going to render on the screen. If I open the dev tool, here is an error unrecognized. This happened as a result of React treating it as an HTML tag and converting it to a string. To fix this, I am going to rename the function with capital letter. I also going to fix it here and here. Now if I save it, message going to render on the screen happy code, and if I reload it, error is going to disappear. And it is also a best practice to save a component with a capital letter. Now in the message component, I want to add a span tag with a content React tutorial. When you first start creating React app, this is mostly likely to happen because we confuse JSX with HTML because they are similar in some ways. So in the browser, we will receive the error about an enclosing tag. React runs in the background and JSX is converted into JavaScript function like this, which is why when we return multiple elements in one component, it returns two values side by side and it is invalid. One function can't return two statements. To solve this issue, wrap them in a single div element. Then utilize as many nested elements inside of it as you like. Now if I save it, it renders the p element and the span. Or you can put the element in the empty tag called fragment like this that only returns one value. In the process of developing a React application, you will encounter different errors in different scenarios. I will highlight some common error messages and what you may be doing incorrectly. I will explain why it happened in the first place so that instead of Googling, you can solve it on your own, which is better approach. I have a home file inside the SRC folder and I want to import it into the app. If I import it like this, you will encounter an error, module not found. This error indicates that you have an incorrect relative path and have forgotten to add /. If you import your file like this or only just /, React will assume that your file is outside of the SRC folder. So add the dot here, save it, and here we are. I have the folder structure inside the SRC, component and cart. Component has a header file. I want to import this file into the app.js. If I import it like this, we still get the error can't resolve here. If you are getting this error, which means you have the problem with module location. You import file based on relative path. So this header file inside the component, you need to provide every parent folder if it is nesting inside and also check if there is typo. I will add the component folder to fix this issue. And here is the content. The location which provided with // indicate that file is in similar folder. So home is in SRC folder and the header is in the component folder. So now I want to import this button component inside the header component. Now if I import it like this, we have the error. Why? Because we need to add extra dot here, which indicate file is outside from the current directory. So in simple word, button is outside of the component folder and inside the cart folder. So here it render. So make sure you are not making any typo and check twice where is your file located. Next error we get module has no export. You make component usable by splitting them into small files, but as you nest more components, it could happen that you forget to export component as default export. We have a user file here and we import into the user component. We need to export this file. Before import it in any component, and remember to not use curly braces around it like this if it is default export. Curly braces could use if you are using named export. It is default. Remove this curly braces from here, or we can use the message named export. If I use export, save it, and how we can import it? Import this message file using the curly braces. And here we won't get any error. So here we are importing the message as a named export and user as a default. In this example, I add the method click handler in the button component, and I add the on click event handler and import it into the app file. But here we are getting the error click handler is not defined. This error clearly means React could not found given pointer function, object or argument in that file. You need to go to that file and look for the line name it's suggesting and examine what you did wrong, because in many cases you have a typo. So here in the line 6, the letter H should be capital instead of small. So here we are. In other cases, object is not exist, function has not been declared, and argument is not assigned, or you are using the component without importing it first. So check all the points and I'm sure you will get better as you debug your code. You have a list of data like this array in your application and you are transforming it with using the map. Chances are you have not unique key, and in the browser you are getting the warning each child in a list should have a unique prop. In the beginning, we tend to forget add key props when we render the list of items or component on the screen. For React to recognize every child element, you must provide key prop that has to be unique. It helps to React differentiate between which element is updated and removed. To fix this, you should pass key prop and provide unique ID inside the array. In real world, we get the unique ID from the database, but here I will use the alternative solution. You can use a string to generate unique keys or IDs and use that. So here, pass the key and in curly braces, use list.toString. Now if I save it and the browser, reload it, and the error is disappeared. We can use JavaScript date object and prefix with iterating item from the list, example, a username. Or we can also use the index key, like passing the index here and use the index. Now if I save it in the browser, error is not showing. This is fine if the element don't get removed or added to them, but if they do, then you will have weird side effect as React will associate the keys with wrong component. The other mistake beginners make pass a number as a string. React take every props as a string type if it is quoted and not wrapped in curly braces. It is going to pass in a string. Make sure to include any numbers or expression you intend to pass as prop to a component in curly braces like this and pass this prop to the user. Calling a state immediately inside the component function is a common state. For example, I am calling the use state inside the button component. Managing state is challenging, especially for the beginner one. When you call the set function directly inside the component, this will cause component to re-render infinitely with the same props. So here's an example of passing set method directly inside the handler. It will invoke the event handler immediately. So if now I save it, the screen is blank and here's the error too many re-renders. This trigger React to keep setting the state and re-rendering and the screen will be blank, no UI going to appear. To solve this re-rendering, call setBGColor method inside the arrow function. Now we will trigger this event here, reload this page and the error has disappeared. Click this button and it worked. Are you working with form where you want to store the input value in the state and update the state every time the value change, but you are unable to type in input field? So here if I press the key, Nothing happened. And here's the warning: you provide a value, a form field without on-change handler. In React, we bind the input element with the state to access the value that we entered in input field, which is called control component. And in React, it works like that. To solve the problem, we need to use the on-change event to the input that change the state as the input value changes. Here on-change, and here the set the handler. Now save it and go to the browser. Now if I type in the input field, it worked. On-change event trigger every time when we enter each value in the input field and update state. So now this is the last mistake I am going to explain: not using the state setter function. If you have the array that store the values and you want to update that list, don't just rely on the variable value here. For updating the new value, you might encounter the strange behavior. For example, you have a list of blocks and you want to add a new block to that list. Using the set list method, if I go to the browser and click the button, it is going to work for you. But if any reason you called set function twice, value is not going to render 2 times. Let's see. Now save it. Now click the button and it only appears 1 time. Why does React behave like that? Because when component re-render, the variable doesn't update immediately and it has no chance to update the previous value. It is best practice to use setter function when you need to update value based on the previous value. For this, I will specify the previous state, the arrow function, and replace this previous state. It will receive the previous value first and then update the new value based on the previous state. Now go ahead and call this function twice and click the button. You will see it render the value as expected. So these are the mistakes you should avoid as a beginner. That's all for today's guys. Let's end this video here. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment and share. And if you are new, please check out the React tutorial playlist.